Today's quilt pattern uses 4 blocks. I am making this out of scrap fabric, but you could certainly make it out of a dark, a medium, and a light contrast fabric. So whenever you see these blocks that I'm showing you, the mid-tone would be your medium color, the darker ones would be your darker, and then the lighter would be your background fabric. So the first 2 blocks are the same, they're just in opposite color ways. You have a 2.5 inch background, 2.5 dark, with a 2.5 by 4.5 background, and you will be making 4 of those, and then you'll be making 4 of these, which is your mid color 2.5 inch, your dark 2.5 inch, and your mid in 2.5 by 4.5. So again, 4 of these, 4 of these. I'm going to go ahead, make those up, and then I'll be right back to show you the next block. Here's 4 of them. I'm just showing you. I just have to join them together, and when I go to press them, I will be pressing to the dark. As a reminder, all the seams are 1/4 inch, and I'll get these pressed up, and then I'll come back to show you the next block. Okay, the next block, we're going to be making 6 of these. This shows the components of putting each block together. Wherever there is the turquoise color, that would be your dark contrast, and the orange and the pinks are what would be your medium, and then you have 2 center squares, which are the background fabric. So to recap the measurements, for each of these 6 blocks, you will need 4 2.5 by 4.5 inch darker fabric. So that would be these here. You'll need 2 that measure 2.5 by 4.5, which would be your medium contrast, which are these here. You will need 2 2.5 by 2.5 inch squares, which would be your dark contrast, and then 2 of your background or low volume that also measure 2.5 by 2.5. To stitch these together, what I'm going to do is I'm going to join these in string piecing. So these 2 together, and these are the same, and then I'll bring them over, these 2 together and these 2 together, and then I will join these in groups and then do the final seam here. So that's how this one block gets pieced. So I'll just show you one, and then we'll have another 5 to go ahead and make. I'll probably do this in photos, so follow me along and we'll get this done quickly. So the first part of the piecing will be putting these 2 4.5 inch squares together. So I've got these joined, so now I'm going to flip this over, right sides together, and do a 1/4 inch seam here and seam here. So these are now pieced. If you're someone who likes to square things up, now would be a time to do that. And what I'm going to do is now sew these together, right sides together, and again I can string piece them, so they'll go like this. So let me do that and I'll be right back. So I've now got the 4 components that make up this block sewn together. Each section would square up to 4.5 inches, so this block is actually going to be 8.5 before it gets sewn with the rest of its blocks. So now it's just as simple as joining these together, pressing them to the dark side, and then taking this whole unit and joining it this way, and then this block is done. So we'll be making 6 of those. I'll show you a picture once I've done this, and then we'll move on to the last block. Okay, I have this last seam to make. I just wanted to point out that if you do press to the dark side, you're going to have the benefit of being able to nest your seams which means that these parts matching up will be a lot easier to do. Okay, and the last block is fairly easy. You need two 2.5-inch squares of your background. You need two 4.5 squares of your background. You need two 2.5-inch of your medium contrast fabric, so not the high contrast, and then two 2.5, 4.5 again of the medium or mid-tone contrast fabric. And again, it's similar to the last block where I'll be sewing these together, then joining this, then adding the larger background block, and then do the same here, and then join those two, and then this block will be done. And again, we need to do 6 of these. Okay, I've got these sewn together. So all I have to do is do this, and again, taking advantage of some pressing to get some nesting seams. You may be asking why I'm using different colors. I'm actually doing this as a scrappy type quilt for a baby, and you'll see it once all the blocks are done, but I'm trying to spell out the mid contrast and high contrast and background low volume. So in case you want to do it just out of 3 colorways or 3 colors, so it's a bit confusing, but you'll see how it all comes together. If you need a printed diagram or a picture of how it would be in the 2 colors, let me know in the comments below, and I will be happy to send you an email. So let me get this joined together, and then I'll continue getting all the other blocks done, and then I'll show you what it's going to look like.